Guys, welcome to an exit interview with MP coach, Humilla Swag captain, Ocean City Beach Ultimate co-creator, DC Breeze head strength and conditioning coach, Team Philippines, Dubai, international player for WCBU, Medman initiating cutter, middle school kind of ultimate coach. Can we say that yet?
Yes.
The list goes on. Sage Roje is the man, Alex Jacoski. Excited to have him here for an interview. How you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me here, Tim.
Absolutely. So to frame this thing up, done a lot of good work. We're really proud of it. And we just want to kind of reflect. We want to document it. We want to see if we can't bring any value in kind of telling our story. Let's start back to your first certification in fitness. What was that?
Certified functional strength coach. Me, you, and Goose went up to Boston in October 2014 for a weekend class and certification.
And this was right when Mike Boyle, Kevin Carr, Kevin Larrabee, Marco Sanchez, Bob, the whole MBSC family, whom I spent 2 years with, it was right when they started doing the CFSC certification. And I jumped on this to make sure Goose and AJ got the certification because I felt very strongly that athletes who turn into strength coaches need to have the requisite knowledge of the movements, the curriculum, the progressions, regressions, but they also need to know how to coach. It's a little bit of an interesting transition because you're used to being coached. It's different when you're actually offering coaching. And a great thing about CFSC is in order to pass the certification, you have to do the written exam, but you also have to go in front of the coaches and actually coach in Q. Yeah. And did you find that valuable?
Very valuable. So the last word of that, certified functional strength coach, you're not just learning the training, you're actually learning how to coach. So one of the things they told myself and told everyone is talk less and just get people moving right away with as little cues as possible. So that was like, that was big for me to hear and just had a big impact on me moving forward as a coach.
And that's been a big growth point for me as well, and I think a lot of strength and conditioning coaches, any kind of coach, because usually what makes a coach is you're so passionate and you just want to say, if you can do this, and then 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 the athlete's like, what? Like, and we've learned, give the athlete one cue, do an immaculate demo, and then let them get reps. Sit back, observe, and then interject if you need to. And that's another great thing about the CFSC certification. So since that point, you've kind of been going back and forth between athlete roles and coaching roles. And after that certification, you and I went out on an MP Asia tour where we took our curriculum, our 8 pillars of functional performance training, and we went and we taught it to a lot of ultimate athletes around Asia. What was that tour? Where did we stop?
We started in Singapore. We did 12 clinics in 14 days. Pretty sure it was very, very full schedule. Then we went to Perth, Australia, trained with Sublime Ultimate and Chaos, the men's and women's team in Perth. What's up, guys? Then we took a week in Bali where you and me got to some training. That was great. And then we ended up in the Philippines. We did 2 clinics in Manila, and then we went out to Boracay and trained with the Dragons, did clinics, then trained with them, then played a tournament with them, the Boracay Open in 2014.
And this was a very eye-opening tour, I think, for both of us, because we were immersed in the Asian culture, and we got to just to experience the ultimate community on that side of the world and see how excited these athletes are and how open-minded they are and how welcoming they were. It was just awesome. And to this day, some lifelong relationships have come out of that tour.
Yeah, it's very true. Ultimate players, there's so many similarities no matter where you go in the world. That was cool just to witness firsthand. And also, I don't think training for Ultimate is still relatively new in the States. They had nothing in Asia representing training specific for Ultimate. So I think our clinics were really their first exposure to that. So it was really cool to see people. One thing I love about the clinics and about FPT is your ultimate skills don't matter now. So some people who may not have been the best ultimate player, all of a sudden their footwork is on point, and then one of the best players is having a hard time with something. So I think it's a neat way for athletes to like gain confidence in these other areas, and then that's going to help their confidence on the field. That's one thing I noticed over there.
It's interesting that you bring that up too, because that's a lot of top athletes, I think, come to me because they know that, like, one of my skills as a strength and conditioning coach, or any strength and conditioning coach should have this skill. You look at the athlete, it's where is this athlete inefficient? Where are they dumping force? Where are there asymmetries? How can they be better? You take the best and you make them better. And a lot of the top ultimate players are the top ultimate players because they've gotten themselves just so patternized into these certain patterns. But the reality is these patterns are asymmetrical. So comes a time in a lot of these top players' career that they start to notice, oh man, I've really conditioned my right hip to be kind of externally rotated, and it's stuck in that position now, and it's every time my foot hits, I'm dumping force out to the side. And these were things that were interesting because it was, I remember being with Sublime and kind of looking, and some of the top players really weren't having a good time at the clinic because they were, like, it was hard for them, and they're used to just showing up at practice, putting on their cleats and dominating.
Yes.
And now we're saying, hey man, you got to get into this split stretch, and yeah, it's not going to be comfortable, but it's going to make you improve.
Yeah. Good Frisbee players don't like not being good at something. And so when they had a hard time with extension pushes or crossovers, it's fun to see them. They see the challenge, they try it, and then to see them trying to work through it. Because like you said, once you get good at Frisbee, you kind of rely on the same things that got you there. But this is something brand new that they had to kind of wrap their heads around. So like you said, trying to make the best even better, I think, is a mentality that's hard for people at first.
Coaching, we see that every athlete is motivated differently, and that's the art of coaching that allows you to take a step back and say, how can I change what I'm seeing here? How can I develop this athlete without making them resent the coach or resent training or whatever it is. So that brings us to MP Ocean City, and there are a lot of things happened between that tour and us getting this facility. But that tour was at the end of 2014, and we ended up starting this facility about 1 year ago. And when it comes to this idea of developing athletes, we've had some pretty neat offerings here at MP Ocean City. And to build on that topic of every athlete's built differently, is motivated differently, one of the coolest things about this space is it's allowed us to do some one-on-one individualized coaching, some one-on-one personal training, as well as an offering that we were really excited about called the MP Launch Packs, which AJ was a part of. So just to give you guys some context, in this facility, very small facility, we have done one-on-one personal training with local clients. That's beach ultimate players, yogis, stand-up paddlers, and just general fitness. We've also done an off-season, open attendance, just winter program, just a 9-week kind of program 0, program 1, blended program, in which AJ was the head coach for. And then we did launch packs. So because you were mostly involved in the second two, let's start there. Launch packs. What is a launch pack and why is it valuable?
Launch packs were valuable because this was a chance to come get personalized coaching from Tim. You're the brains behind this whole thing. People really wanted that. And it's different than the distance coaching, which is done primarily through video exchange. This was a chance for people to come get in-person coaching. Like you said, addressing asymmetries, correctives, really just analyzing that athlete. And then we did pre-testing out in the field, 40 times serpentine, 150 shuttle, vertical jump, broad jump, single leg broad jump. We got all this pre-testing data. And then we came back into this gym, that was out on the field. We came back into this gym where we basically coached them on some essential movements. Single leg squat, kettlebell swing, push-ups, like upper body pushing and pulling, and proper shoulder function and form. And then after that, they had a 3-phase 9-week program. You got both. You got in-person coaching, pre-testing, gym weightlifting coaching, and then a program moving forward. So really a tremendous value, and I think.
And that's something that's so neat about these launch packs, and it's something that in the strength conditioning world I haven't seen done before. And the idea that we had is, hey, let's make this a small, intimate group, and let's make sure that these athletes get the individualized attention that they deserve, and start a file for that athlete. So every athlete had, we would have their FMS scores, which we'd write down. We had a file for their pre-testing, which AJ mentioned, all the pre-tests that we did at the grass and at the field. And we just kind of took notes as we went on that athlete. And then I ended up taking the athletes on for distance coaching afterwards. They became a member of our back-end system, and some of them went only 9 weeks, but a lot of them came to actually peak at Worlds and this club championship, so I ended up taking these athletes longer. And man, did we have some success. I mean, so world champions out of this launch pack program: Peter Pryle, Tom Doy, Opie Payne did a launch pack, won a gold medal.
Josh
Mullen with Masters won a gold medal. VY Chow did not do the launch pack, she was distance coaching. And then we also had a number of athletes that came through that are now peaking for the club championships this week. A lot of truck stop athletes. So Tom Doy, Peter Pryle, Jonathan Neely. Just a tremendous experience to take these athletes from, hey, here's where you are, square one, here's your inefficiencies, present that to them, teach them the system, give them the back-end member access to be able to access our programs when we're not here, and then just walk down that path with them. And it was a challenge, and it was a very neat challenge because it allowed us to really create some deep relationships with these athletes that have carried on. I mean, you are a colleague on the DC Breeze with a lot of those athletes. I mean,
yeah. So I played with Neely, Tom Doy on DC Breeze this year, and a large chunk of the truck stop roster, plus great club players from Ambiguously Gray, surrounding club teams. And so it was really cool during the Breeze season to see those couple guys who came for the launch packs. They did not need to be taught the things that I had to teach the majority of the team. So like FPT fundamentals, railroad tracks, shoulder torque, basically the general concept of asymmetries. So if you step out and you throw on one side, that creates an asymmetry in your right hip compared to your left hip based on how you're constantly using them. So the launch pack guys knew all this. They had already done a big portion of off-season training, and then to see them, up here, and the rest of the guys here, I'm trying to move them along, move them up. That was really cool for me. Another thing that I really think the launch pack did was obviously it brought people closer to us because they came here, but we didn't have the gym really set up the whole summer, and so people didn't really know what we were doing out here. They know we had a gym because we put a couple photos out. They know the name functional performance training, but it's a big shift in your training thinking. So we don't just give it out to everyone because it's a big shift. So we need to work with people one-on-one to make them make that shift. So I think once the guys came to Ocean City, saw our house, saw this gym, saw that we're a mile from the beach, they kind of understood why we were here more. So that was really cool, just to kind of gain, for them just to enter our world, I guess, and see why we're here. That was really cool.
And that's the exact experience that we're trying to create for them, is make them understand, hey, you guys are great Frisbee players, you get the sports skill training, we're going to teach you the functional performance training, but we also wanted them to have an experience in nutrition. We offered organic eggs, nitrate-free bacon, great organic coffee, the bulletproof coffee option, all these things as the breakfast to start the day. And then, they got to experience a little bit of the lifestyle too. We made sure that everybody, not all the athletes got in the ocean, but a lot of, because it was still cold for some of these launch packs, but a lot of athletes got to experience why we love Ocean City, why we see this as a great place to live if your goal is to live an abundant, happy, training-based lifestyle. So the launch packs were awesome. I would like to continue to do them over the years. A lot of these athletes have seen the system. They're so bought into the system now that they've become members of our new resources, the membership site, which will be launching here shortly. And Neely, just before he went to Nationals, sent me his final hang cleans, his peak hang cleans. And just to see Neely now compared to what he was, it's incredible, because he's just, you can just see it in his body, and you can see it in his confidence too. And that's one of the most rewarding parts of being a strength and conditioning coach, is seeing the athletes evolve. Another one of our offerings that AJ was the head coach for was what we called the winter off-season program, which we offered to local athletes. And this idea was inspired by my time at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning, where the way that they run their program is they have a summer program, they have a spring program, they have a winter program, and the dates are set. They mail it out to everybody around Boston, everybody who's on their list, and no matter, you sign up for the program, and it's up to you to be there. When you're there, you're going to be in a group with other athletes, and you're going to go through the program, and it's already fixed. It starts this date, ends this date. And there's always a coach, 1 to 2 coaches, and MBSC prides themselves on having a very good coach-to-athlete ratio, meaning if there's a group of 15 athletes, it's probably going to be 4 coaches so that the athletes can get that kind of attention. Now, with our program, we only had a couple athletes, but we had 1 to 2 coaches every time, so we did have that individualized attention. And this was during a time when I was doing a bit of traveling, I wasn't always present, and AJ took over as the head coaching role for these athletes and crushed it, did a great job, great feedback from the athletes. They got strong, they just had great things to say, and we actually still play Beach Ultimate with some of these athletes, Dipsky and Logan, and we're seeing their game just continue to improve, and this kind of set the foundation for them, because I don't think any of the athletes in this program actually had lifted formally before this.
Yeah, I don't think so. Logan was, I think, a college soccer player.
Yes.
Dipsky has been a long-time soccer player, but he's also played Ultimate for a while. But he really got serious about Ultimate about 2 years ago. He started training, more field training with us. Then we brought him on Milliswag, so he was there for both years of our nationals runs. And it was really neat to basically coach these guys in the gym from the ground up. And obviously my primary focus was making them as good as possible. But in order to demo and show them stuff, I was essentially in here with them, doing a lot of the lifting, which it was just really fun to work with guys who had very little experience in the gym. And training with FPT brings in things from all these other areas. And so we would start off over here in our little carpeted area, we would roll, we would stretch. That was kind of the downtime, we could chit chat. Then once we got into the activations, that's when like the workout started. And so that's kind of an idea I brought into my Frisbee teams. Rolling and stretching is social time, it's cool to talk, but after the activation starts, it's like focus. That's time to start doing work.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see everyone click in, because you want to keep it loose. Obviously, you want to have fun, but at a certain point, you're there to do work. So seeing them improve week to week, we followed your programming, and they got really excited about what numbers they were putting up, and more so how well they did it. That was just exactly what we wanted them to be concerned about. So if Logan had a good squat or a clean, if he had a good squat and clean based on the numbers, we would have filmed each other. If it didn't look right, he knew it wasn't an A+, then it wasn't really worth it. So to see them be so critical of their form, that was probably the biggest success about coaching, because they now understand good work they form.
And it was a periodized program, so it's always this idea of delayed gratification. Like the early phases, we've got to be very focused on, hey, are you doing this exercise correctly? We're not going to load this heavy until we see it look well. And because a lot of these athletes are learning this stuff for the first time, that can be difficult. And as long as they stick with it, they'll go through the 3 to 4 weeks of the first phase, and then as soon as that next phase comes out, which we printed out for them, put in their folders, they'd be pumped because they're like, yes, a new phase, and the reps would get lower, which means they could add more weight, and then we built up to some pretty big lifts in the final phases. It's interesting that you bring up the chit-chat idea, because that's one of the struggles I know that I have as a coach. And a lot of athletes train and play Frisbee for the social aspect, and I think that's completely fine. Like that's one of the biggest reasons I'm into it. But when it comes to improving as an athlete, when it comes to actually doing work, we do have this struggle a lot of times. Is a lot of athletes, they don't want to work. They just want to chit-chat. They just want to talk about how they're feeling. And that can be a struggle sometimes. So I really like that tip that you just gave of catch up, do your social time while you're rolling and stretching, but as soon as the activations start, we're going to work. We are focused. And that's cool. I never heard that you brought up that onto your other teams.
Yeah. With Breeze and Medicine Men, that kind of became, I don't know, at some point in the season, just kind of became that.
Good.
I don't know when, but working with those teams over the course of this year, at first when you're approaching a team with this brand new warm-up, brand new training philosophy, generally people are skeptical because they got themselves, most ultimate players have trained themselves and gotten themselves to where they are now. And when I'm bringing the training to a whole team, each individual player isn't necessarily asking me for that training. It's up to me to kind of win them over versus people that have come for launch packs, have come for training. They know what they're getting into. So I think for training with a team, getting them to buy in is huge. I mean, buy-in is big on any team, whether it's offensive structure, season philosophies, training, buy-in has to be just as important and just as focused. So if you're training your team, just getting them focused on buy-in and why. Basically, that's one of the biggest things we have here is why are you doing what you're doing, and understanding the why. It's a big part of FPT.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because that's, when you look at our mission statement, you see our mission is to empower athletes to become the best version of themselves, to be the best ultimate player that they can be. And we firmly believe that that's a function of educating the athlete. The athlete that understands why they're doing what they're doing is going to be that much more bought in. And a lot of other sports, these athletes that grow up, they just go to practice, they've always got a coach, they go to the gym, they've always got a strength and conditioning coach. They just want to get it done. They don't want to know why. And that's fine if you're a varsity athlete at a university or a professional athlete, but we're ultimate players. We don't have that luxury to constantly be coached. So we've always tried to say, hey, we need you to understand this. We need you to take ownership over your body and over your performance. And when the athlete does that and they buy in, everything changes. And as AJ mentioned, I've done this with so many teams up to this point. There's always a couple people that I can just tell this person isn't bought in, doesn't get it. And we've come up with little ways to, show that person where their inefficiencies are, or just doing different things to make sure that they feel the movement, and that really helps them to buy in. So tell us a little bit about, Medicine Men, an open division team battling to go to nationals, and then DC Breeze, the best ultimate coach in the history of ultimate. Goose Helton, the two-time MVP of the AUDL, two-time world champion. Brett Madzuka, Bob Lou, Jonathan Neely, David Cranston. So many of these athletes are just at a world-class level, and you're coming in and trying to teach them a new system and also be a player alongside of them. And as I say this out loud, I'm like, wow, dude, what a challenge. And you crushed it.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit.
It was interesting. It was a cool ride. We started off with the Breeze. Again, some of the Breeze guys came down for launch packs. Doy and Neely, and I don't think I'm missing anything. I think there were only two.
Yeah.
But then we had focused training weekends up in DC where me and Goose went up. We trained with them, and so my role as a player and strength coach. Meanwhile, I'm not considered an elite player because I've never played at Club Nationals yet. I've been with Medicine Men. We're a regionals level team. This year, we lost in a game to go to nationals, so that was as close as we could get. So I think just coming from me, a lot of guys were hesitant to listen to me. So how I tried to bridge that gap was just basically using reason and logic behind the training. Because everything within FPT makes so much sense based on the mechanics of the human body. So if I couldn't relate to them on a club nationals level, I would relate to them on a human body level. But probably, getting the experts in, you and Goose, was huge. And people know my relationship to you guys, so I think that was big as far as getting buy-in from the players. Again, didn't get everyone. Some people still have their own ways. That's fine. But by the end of the year, guys they loved the warm-up. They now swear by mini bands. One of my good friends on both Breeze and Medicine Men, Matt Kerrigan, he bought 50 mini bands and sold them to Breeze players, sold them to Medicine Men players. I called it the miniband revolution, and Matt Kerrigan led the miniband revolution
Nice work,
in
Matt.
DC. Thank you, Matt Kerrigan. And then with Breeze, it was interesting because we had a 2-hour practice once a week and then games. And so aside from the training weekends, we had almost no time to train together as a team. I'm saying that as a guy that lives in Ocean City. There were dudes up in DC doing pod workouts, so people are still training together, but you didn't have the 28-person team running shuttles together. We did a couple times of practice, but essentially I had 15 to 20 minutes at the beginning of every practice to get as much crammed in as possible. So I would have to get everyone's attention. I would have to explain my intention for that warm-up, hey, everyone listen, I need to teach you this right now. So I decided years ago to get this surgery, which I put off for a while because I was snowboarding and surfing and just doing all kinds of other stuff. So getting that surgery that long ago and deciding that I wanted to be an elite ultimate player, that's kind of just stayed with me the whole time. This season, I kind of have motivations for each of those little things. Like Ocean City Beach Ultimate, my motivation is the other players. I want them to get as rich an ultimate experience as they can. So I want to show up with positivity. I want to be on time. I want to set up a full-size field. I want to teach them good ultimate. So, because other people did that for me at one point. So I just want to give back. So that's why that's my motivation for those guys. My motivation for the Breeze was playing under Dutchy, playing with the truck stop guys, living with Goose Helton in his house was amazing. And you also, Goose, these other guys kind of just pushing me forward was a huge motivation. And I mean, people who are loyal to your training are loyal because it basically helped all of us reach these levels of ultimate we're at. Goose has been training with you since like 2010 or 2011. We've been friends for like 10 years, so we've had different parts where we are living together, and then you're in Boston, I'm in Colorado, but we've kept in touch, and I've kind of seen the whole training system evolve, seen you evolve, so I guess my main motivation is just other people, whether it's my teammates, my coach, my roommates, people in the league. Like, ultimate is such a communal thing, and you can't, I just taught this to the middle schoolers yesterday, you cannot score with one person. It requires 2 people to score, so that's just like, that level of team that you find in ultimate is just one of the best things about the sport. So just people motivated. It's awesome.
And that's the process. Like, I've seen it from 2012. I actually have a video of you doing your 500 swim for lifeguard tryouts, and he could barely get his shoulder out of the pool because it had no mobility. And then I remember when we started training, I put you into a black burn, which is just where you're laying down in prone position, and we want to see if the athlete can get their arms all the way over here and all the way back, and you would get to about here, and there was no way that you could go either further. And you worked on it, and you worked on it, and you studied the shoulder, and you studied shoulder mobility, and you were consistent and process, consistency, and now you've got that shoulder mobility, you're able to lay out, full extension, arm overhead, and it's just been awesome to see.
Yeah, it's been cool. I think having goals for yourself is very important. Having a vision for yourself is very important. And then, along with the process things, you need to know that there's little things that have to happen to get you there. And as far we read this book, Relentless by Tim Grover, great book, but it just talked a lot about Michael Jordan, LeBron, Dwayne Wade. 3 of the best basketball players of all time, 3 of the best athletes of all time. And stuff I've learned from Dutchy the last 3 years on Breeze is all the little things. A big lesson I've learned over the years is all the little things add up. So a constant thought I have to myself is this going to help me become a better player? And so whether that's getting enough sleep, stopping what you're doing to get sleep, eating the right things at the right time. In addition to training, you talked about this, focusing on recovery, committing to recovery, getting yourself ready to go again is huge. I think that's very neglected by a lot of ultimate players. They just want to train, and then as soon as you're done that game, tournament, or training, you just kind of turn everything off, and you can eat whatever you want, do whatever you want because the training's over. But it's like, no, that recovery gets you ready to keep moving forward. So it's just committing to all the little things makes a huge difference in the end.
And living it. Our favorite stick figure song. We will put in the show notes all the things that we talked about tonight. That book, Relentless, great read for any of you guys that want to go to the next level and need that motivation. It's just an inside look into the mind of some of the most relentless competitors ever, written by actually a strength and conditioning coach, Tim Grover. And one of the things he'll say is there is no off season. If if you want to be an elite athlete, you've got to grind all year long, 365. And there may be times where, of course, we need to have a down regulation cycle where we might not be lifting heavy weights, but the grind never ends, just like what you said about Bo. So, signing off here, AJ, we're really proud of you.
Thanks.
Hard worker, consistent, disciplined, everything you could ask for from a coach, from an athlete. We'll see a lot more from AJ soon. See you guys soon.
Yeah.
I think we should start with probably 2 or 3 curls each bicep. Just make sure. Gotta get that bicep pump, that functional bicep of ours. It really helps. Wow, is that some kind of new breathing technique?
Feels pretty good. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
You gotta teach me that.
All the
seen
cool
a lot of
guys, I've
those.
seen other guys doing that. It looks so cool. I want to do it now.
Oh hey,
Hey guys.
funny seeing you here. We were just doing our bicep curls.